A cardiologist was actually in the class. He said, if I was still practicing medicine today, the first thing I would prescribe to my patients is a grain meal. So what if it's our muscle cells breaking down at a faster rate? Then they can be reproduced. We're going to have weak strength. One of the first books I studied so much about vitamin E was Adele Davis. One thing that was so interesting that she pointed out was muscle weakness. And she said, babies today are born with real floppy necks and floppy heads, you know, and she goes, it shouldn't be. It hasn't always been that way. And she attributed it to a lack of vitamin E causing the muscle weakness and lack of strength in these babies. Now, I birthed 7 children naturally. My first 5, they were healthy, but my 6th and 7th child were both conceived and born after I started milling and making bread. Noticeably difference in their muscle strength. At 4 days old, my 6th child, Lydia, I watched from across the room. My husband was in a kind of semi-reclined position. 4 days old. She was laying on his tummy, you know, belly to belly, and I watched her crawl. 4 days old.
Wow.
Shimmy up him. He wasn't sitting up straight, but he wasn't laid down. She went up.
It's incredible.
And moved her arms and legs, and she was always just super strong. And I know some of it is genetic. She's built a little differently and more muscular than my other kids. But then my 7th child, when I delivered her, she had swallowed some meconium. They had to, you know, respirate her and suck that out. Well, she didn't like that at all. So she's screaming. So they bring her over and they lay her onto me and on my chest here, and I'm kind of semi-reclined. So she's rolled with her face down like this. Well, they're still working on me. The midwife said something to me and I answered her, and that little 10-minute-old child takes her head and lifts her head and like that, wow, and makes eye contact with me.
Incredible.
Neither one of those children ever had this. I mean, you know, they weren't like sit up straight, right, but it was noticeably different.
Yeah.
A study that was done on people that had outside physical labor jobs in stressful heat and cold and all this, and they found that when they had wheat germ oil, they were more strong, reduce stress and ability to work under those stressful conditions. I just can't stress enough the importance of vitamin E. And like Dr. Shute says, after bread started being fractured and the Brandon germ removed, prior to that, daily intake of vitamin E would have been about 150 units, which seems kind of low to me, but food, when you get your nutrients from food, it's a much lower amount, and I think the average today is about 7 units.
Oh my word. What a big difference.
We're breathing all the time. We're taking in oxygen. We have to have oxygen to live. Oxygen makes every biochemical function happen in our body, but we have to have that vitamin E to protect it from destroying the fats, you know, the good fats that we need. So I've just seen so many It's the Bread testimonies. A lady just Saturday told me that her child had severe emotional, psychiatric issues, 12 years old. They started doing the bread, and in a matter of weeks, she said, I have my daughter back. That's going to be a podcast coming up. I think I'm interviewing her and the daughter. Despite a wide variety of symptoms that can be attributed to a vitamin E deficiency, it really has this one main function to protect every cell in our body.
Well, just like you said, it has the ability to clot, but it also has the ability to thin.
Exactly.
And when the food is in its whole form, which is how God created it to be, it knows what to do.
Yes.
And it's just like magnesium. Magnesium can calm, but it can also give you energy.
Exactly. And when we're getting it from our food, you may have this nutrient that does this over here, but you have this here that's balancing it.
Yes.
You know, like calcium and magnesium.
So you want them together.
You want them together.
Yep.
So, and that's what I love. You've got the fiber, you've got every nutrient to break down fat and cholesterol so it can be used. You've got the fatty acids themselves, and you've got the vitamin E.
Yes.
Yeah. And I always laugh when people people say, how much bread do I need to eat? And I compare it to Jesus. I'm like, Jesus compared himself to bread. How much Jesus do you need? Every day, every way. And he's a complete package. And he says, come to me, and I am the real bread of life. He who comes to me shall be satisfied. And we could live off of bread if we needed to. Whole grains, real whole grains if we needed to. It's a perfect storable food, but that vitamin E is one of the first nutrients that will perhaps be oxidized and used up, because that's its job. It's going to protect other nutrients from being oxidized, so it itself will be oxidized. So that's why it's so important to mill the flour when you're ready to use it, so you get the maximum amount of vitamin E there. Once the bread is baked, the nutritional loss is minimal. When we had a bakery years ago, we actually sent our bread to be tested. We didn't want, I don't know if people know this, but a lot of nutrition labels, it's just you submit the recipe and it's a database, and we didn't want that with our bread, because we knew there was no database on freshly milled flour. So we actually sent it to the lab, the baked loaf of bread. And I remember they called my son-in-law at the time was running the bakery, and they were like, so what did you fortify this bread with? And he was like, nothing. And they're like, no, you don't understand. We're saying, what vitamins did you use to enrich the flour? Nothing. And she goes, no, what are you using to, what vitamins are you putting in there? And he goes, nothing. We used our flour, we milled it, and we made the bread, we baked it, and sent it to you. And all the B vitamins were there, the folic acid, all the B1, B2, B3, it's all there. But what was very fascinating, we had some additional tests done, and one was vitamin E. And now, the minimum daily requirement, by the government, I think is a little low. But in one slice of bread, real bread, 100% of your vitamin E for the day.
So eat 2 and you can cover it all.
But eat more bread. Sure. Don't just eat one thinking that's enough. But you need it because you're breathing, you're using it up. So all day, every day, throughout the day, you need to be getting those good nutrients in your body.
The human body needs 44 nutrients to live.
That's basically, your minerals, your vitamins, and everything. And the article that I read, or the textbook that I read, it says of the 44 absolutely essential nutrients to produce life and health, there's only 4
missing
that are slightly, and even I've just read recently, they're not really missing, they're just maybe slightly deficient, some of them. Now, vitamin D is not there. Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C. Iodine is in bread.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was the one that it mentioned.
No, iodine is there.
I love that. B12.
Yeah. B12 is going to be slightly low because it's hard to get completely from plant sources.
Neat.
But A, C, D, which vitamin A is in some grains, but like I said, it's a little lower than what your body needs. And then lysine is an amino acid that's slightly low in grains. It's high in beans. Methionine is an amino acid that's low in beans but high in grains, and that's why grains and beans are so great to have together. There might be more than 4, but it really supplies most everything.
Do you sprout? Have you sprouted?
I don't sprout my wheat too much. I sprout other things, but I eat fruits and vegetables. Yeah, I eat fruits and vegetables.
While we have this beautiful bread out, how long would this last after it comes out of the oven? How many days just on the counter?
Just on the counter so room temperature is your best temperature to store bread, or freezing if you need to prolong the shelf life. You never really want to store yeast bread in the refrigerator, unless of course it has meat or cheese or something that needs to be refrigerated. But that refrigeration temperature tends to dry it out. So room temperature, if you let the bread completely cool before you bag it, 5 to 7 days. And like I said, from everything I've read, the nutritional once it's baked, the nutritional loss is minimal. It's the flour, and the best example I give of that is kind of like blanching vegetables to freeze them. You're stopping that enzymatic oxidation so they don't keep rotting and breaking down.
Right.
So it's kind of like that with I think, with flour. And that's just an analogy, but you mill the flour, bake the bread, and now the nutritional loss is minimal. And I realize some people, you have to store flour, and hey, if we go on vacation and can't take our meal with us, I take flour with me if I don't take bread. If I'm going to be somewhere, it's better than anything you can buy in the store. Exactly right. But the optimum, the very best, mill the flour, make your bread, store your bread. Yeah.
And if I'm going to freeze it, like let's just say I made 5 loaves.
Yeah.
So I'm going to freeze 4. You just wait till it cools completely?
Yes, you want to wait till it cools completely before you bag it. That's more so it doesn't sweat, so it doesn't sweat inside the bag, because if you create moisture inside that bag, then anywhere, it's going to create condensation. It's going to create
ice crystal.
It's going to, So you just want it to really cool completely before you bag it. And we have some great bread bags here that are nice and big and can hold big loaves, long loaves, whatever, and they're thick enough that they work very nicely to freeze the loaves of bread in.
Well, Sue, I want to thank you so much for taking this time to explain this much needed information. And I'd like to hear from you. Did you know, have you heard of this before? And I don't mean that we need vitamin E. I mean this deep conversation, education, and that you can find it all right here.
Yeah, in the bread.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
So leave a comment below, let me know. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you don't mind, if you would subscribe to my channel, and if you hit that bell, then you'll be notified for all the things that are to come. I'm actually going to be getting in my kitchen and showing you how to make bread. And I want to thank you guys so much. You guys have a great day.